Hey, welcome back. Today we're looking at Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 4. In Act 3, we saw the turning point, the turning of the action, where Puck had finally sorted out the four lovers. And so, although there's still a whole lot of confusion to sort through, at least Lysander and Hermia are together, and Demetrius and Helena are together. We still have to sort out Titania and Bottom, as well as Lysander and Hermia's legal problems back home with her dad. But at least now we're headed in the right direction. Act 4 of a Shakespeare play is usually the falling action. But there's often also a second problem to iron out before things are finally finished. And so let's see how we begin to iron out the rest of our problems as we move out of the midnight and into the morning, out of the woods back to the city. The reverse of what we did at the beginning of the book. Scene 1 of Act 4 opens with the four lovers still asleep on the stage, and Titania and Bottom come in surrounded by all of their fairies. And Titania is still fawning over Bottom with his donkey's head, and Bottom is still being kind of ridiculous. And there's a fun juxtaposition here. And there's a wonderful juxtaposition here because all of the elegance and beauty of the fairy queen as she offers him all of these delicious and delightful pleasures of the fairy world are met with Bottom's rather blunt and unsophisticated taste. She offers him music, she offers him delicious things to eat, but he keeps asking for unsophisticated and unrefined things like the tongs and the bones instead of beautiful fairy music. He's also continuing with all of his malapropisms, and as he speaks to the fairy servants and has them scratch his ears, he continually tries to use foreign languages to sound really fancy. But he has this funny blend between French and Spanish. He calls the fairy servants Monsieur, but then later on Signor. And he seems more and more ridiculous, while Titania seems more and more elegant. Finally, they snuggle up together and fall asleep, and Titania says, "So doth the woodbine the sweet honeysuckle gently entwist. The female ivy so enrings the barky fingers of the elm. Oh, how I love thee! How I dote on thee!" Meanwhile, this whole time, Oberon has been watching her and finally beginning to pity her. He put her in this ridiculous situation, and he sees how degrading it is for someone of her beauty and elegance to be coupled with something so blunt and ugly as Bottom. And when Robin shows up, Oberon says, "Her dotage now I do begin to pity. For meeting her of late behind the wood, seeking sweet favours for this hateful fool, I did upbraid her, and fall out with her. For she his hairy temples had then rounded with a coronet of fresh and fragrant flowers. And that same dew, which sometime of the buds was wont to swell like round and orient pearls, stood now within the pretty floweret's eyes, like tears that did their own disgrace bewail. When I had at my pleasure taunted her, and she in mild terms begged my patience, I then did ask of her her changeling child, which straight she gave me, and her fairy sent to bear him to my bower in fairyland. And now I have the boy. I will undo this hateful imperfection of her eyes. And, gentle Puck, take this transformed scalp from off the head of this Athenian swain, that he, awakening when the others do, may all to Athens back again repair, and think no more of this night's accidents, but as a fierce vexation of a dream." And so Oberon begins to pity Titania with the joke that he played on her. And as he has done throughout the play, he returns things to order. And at this point, he has possession of the boy. So things have been set to the order that Oberon wants. And in some interpretations, that means the rightful order, where things are as they ought to be. At least Oberon seems to think so. And so he puts the antidote in Titania's eyes, and she awakens. And as soon as she awakens, she mentions her dream. She had this ridiculous dream that she was in love with this donkey-headed fool. And oh, look, there he is. And Titania is somewhat horrified to find herself there beside Bottom, but she turns to Oberon, who tells her that he will explain everything to her. And he asks her to summon some music that will further enchant the sleepers until it's their time to wake. She does so, and then Oberon and Titania dance. Why is that important? Well, if we remember all the way back to Act 2, it was their refusal to dance that led to all of the disorder of the world. And now somehow, through this process, Oberon has restored order. Not just order for the four lovers, but he's also restored the relationship between himself and Titania. And he says to her, "Now thou and I art new in amity, and will tomorrow midnight solemnly dance in Duke Theseus' house triumphantly, and bless it to all fair prosperity. And there the pairs of faithful lovers be wedded with Theseus, all in jollity." So because Titania and Oberon are back together again, now they are restored and all order can be restored. They not only can dance again, but they will dance at the wedding of these lovers, and therefore indue rightness and order to the future for these lovers, a happily ever after. And just then the morning lark begins to sound. It's morning time. And Titania says, as they're flying away, "Come, my lord, and in our flight, tell me how it came this night, that I sleeping here was found with these mortals on the ground." And so they swoop away with Oberon to explain everything that happened to her. At this moment, Theseus and Hippolyta come in, and they're still killing time till the wedding. And as they enter, they are on a hunt, and they are listening to the hounds pursuing out there. And as they ride out into the woods for the hunt, they look down and they see the four lovers lying there on the ground. And Aegeus, who's with them, is rather shocked. "My lord, this is my daughter here asleep, and this Lysander. This Demetrius is, this Helena, old Netter's Helena. I wonder of their being here together." And Theseus poses that maybe they all gathered together to celebrate May Day or something. But anyway, he says, "Hey, today's the day that we're supposed to hear the answer from Hermia. Let's go ahead and wake them up and see what her decision is." And so they wind the horns, and all the four lovers wake up and are startled to see in front of them the Duke and Duchess. Theseus says, "Good morrow, friends. St. Valentine is past. Begin these woodbirds but to couple now?" And so there's a sort of hint that he notices that they're coupling as the woodbirds do on Valentine's Day. And Theseus, again, very confused, he says, "How come you all are together? I mean, I thought Demetrius, you and Lysander hated each other." And Lysander begins to answer what he's doing here, and he stands amazedly. He's confused, he's just come out of sleep, and everything last night was so strange he doesn't really know what to make of it. And so he begins to sort of confusedly answer, and he realizes, actually we were running away together, Hermia and I. As soon as Aegeus hears that, he jumps up and is very angry. He wants to get revenge on Lysander for trying to steal his daughter. He's like, "Demetrius, look what he was doing!" But Demetrius is like, "Yeah, you know what, I don't care anymore. I'm actually in love with Helena now. But good my lord, I wot not by what power, but by some power it is, my love to Hermia, melted as the snow, seems to me now as the remembrance of an idle god, which in my childhood I did dote upon. And all the faith, the virtue of my heart, the object and the pleasure of mine eye is only Helena." And he remembers that he was actually engaged to Helena way back when, before he broke off with her and chased after Hermia. And Theseus says, "Well, it seems like they've sorted themselves out. Aegeus, I'm going to have to overrule you. Let's just let them marry who they want. Everybody meet me today and we'll have a big three-way wedding, rather than just me and Hippolyta." And so Theseus and the train march off, leaving the four lovers there, still pretty confused after waking up. And they're all looking at each other in confusion, like, did that just really happen? What just happened? What's going on? Demetrius says, "Are you sure that we are awake? It seems to me that yet we sleep, we dream. Do not you think the Duke was here and bid us follow him?" And they all are like, yeah. And so then they all start to head out, and they said, "Why then, we are awake, let's follow him, and by the way, let us recount our dreams." So everything from the night before, from the last few acts, is going to seem to them as a dream. A Midsummer Night's Dream. And yet somehow, waking up, they're all back with who they ought to be. Demetrius is no longer pursuing Hermia, and now he's with Helena, and he's happy with it. I always felt slightly bad that he's the only one that gets, permanent enchanted. What's free will? Just after they exit, Bottom wakes up, and he thinks he's still in the middle of the play, and he's looking for his cue at first, but then he realizes he's all alone, and all the other actors have left him, and it's morning, and man did he have a weird dream. And he begins to sort of try to remember his dream, and it's so baffling to him. He uses a whole lot more malapropisms, and also another idea of synesthesia. The eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen, man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was. There's a confusion of his senses, along with all of his other confusions. And he decides that his dream was so amazing, he's going to have Peter Quince write out his dream and then read it at the death of Thisbe in the middle of the play. It shall be called Bottom's Dream, because it hath no bottom. There's obviously a comedy to the way he expresses all of it, but we're obviously coming to a kind of a head with all of this discussion of dreams. And what dreams mean. We'll see a final conclusion on this theme in Act 5. But in Scene 2, we cut back into Athens, where we finally return, and all of the actors are moping together because their acting careers are done. Without Bottom, there's no way the play can go forward. They would have all been rich and famous if only they had had a chance to put on this performance. And worst of all is their wonderful friend Bottom has been lost and translated in the woods into some kind of monster. And oh, if only he had a chance to do his performance, the Duke would have given him a pension for life. And just as they're talking about all of their feelings about how wonderful Bottom used to be, in pops Bottom! And they're overjoyed and shocked, and it's Bottom! And he says that he has wonders to tell them, but he can't tell them right now because their play is preferred. Not a word of me! All that I will tell you is that the Duke hath dined. Get your apparel together, good strings to your beards, new ribbons to your pumps. Meet presently at the palace, every man look o'er his part. For the short and the long is, our play is preferred. In any case, let Thisbe have clean linen, and let not him that plays the lion pare his nails, for they shall hang out for the lion's claws. And most dear actors, eat no onions nor garlic, for we are to utter sweet breath, and I do not doubt but to hear them say that it is a sweet comedy. No more words! Away! Go away! And so things are finally falling into place for our denouement, the wrapping up of this play. We still have to finish unraveling what the title A Midsummer Night's Dream means, as well as seeing how this play is going to go over, and how the people will live happily ever after in the end of this comedy, all of which we'll see in Act 5. But before we go, there's one more point I'd like to point out here. Throughout this play, we've had a tension between two images. Cupid and Diana, the god of love and the goddess of chastity and the moon. In Act 1, Hermia had the choice between marrying someone she didn't love and being a nun in service to the moon, Diana. Once we got out into the woods in Acts 2 and 3, we saw the tension between the two flowers, the flower that had been struck by Cupid's arrow, love and idleness, the love potion flower, and the antidote that undoes the love potion, the flower that Oberon calls Dian's bud. It's the flower of Diana, the goddess of the moon and of chastity. And we've seen throughout this play that the flower of love can wreak havoc on everyone. It can make these characters into absolute fools. Lord, what fools these mortals be, as Puck says. Love certainly doesn't go along with reason, as we saw in the last act, and in Lysander's words in Act 2. And yet, even though love makes you foolish and crazy, when it's in the right place, it makes everything right and ordered and good. And so I guess I can come to terms with Demetrius's permanent enchantment. Thanks for watching. If you'd like some more resources, I have a whole lot more stuff over on Patreon, and I'd love to have you over there as a subscriber. Or you can click now to subscribe here on YouTube, or watch another video. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.